Good evening, everybody. My name's Julie Willis, and I am the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning here at the University of Melbourne. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the unceded land on which we work, learn and live. Tonight we're gathered on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples. I'd like to note that we're celebrating a building that stands on what was once a thriving wetland, and the eels that lived in that wetland still travel up and down the drains, going down Brewery Street and coming up here. Of course, it's changed a bit since then, and generations of white settler interventions, of which this building is one, have come since that time. We recognise the unique place held by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the original owners and custodians of the lands and the waterways across the Australian continent, with histories of continuous connection dating back more than 60,000 years. We also acknowledge their enduring cultural practices of caring for country. We pay respects to elders past, present and future, and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledges in the Academy. So welcome all and thank you for joining us here on this very special evening. It's fantastic to gather together to celebrate 10 years of this wonderful building. Officially opened in December 2014, the Melbourne School of Design building, now known as the Glyn Davis Building, set a new standard for built environment education in the Asia Pacific. Designed to serve as a living, breathing educational tool, the building received 15 awards in its first year as an exemplar of modern education and sustainable design. The building has become a central hub on the Parkville campus for students, alumni, industry and other visitors to gather, and a home to leading events and exhibitions, with an average annual foot traffic of 450,000 people. None of this would have been possible without the support of all of you in this room. Thank you. I'm honoured to acknowledge the presence of the Consul General and Deputy Consul General of Japan here tonight, reflecting the contribution of the Japan World Exposition 1970 Commemorative Fund and the special place that this beautiful Japanese room, designed by Professor Shigeru Yura, and terrace hold in our faculties past, present and future. And joining us are a number of industry supporters, including Dulux, with whom we've enjoyed an incredible decade-long partnership as the inaugural sponsor of our gallery. This support was instrumental in shaping an inspiring and engaging public program within the higher education and built environment sectors, with more than 50 exhibitions in the Dulux Gallery, drawing audiences from across the state, nationally and beyond. Many of you in this room demonstrated your belief in our shared vision for the new building, contributing both personally and professionally through philanthropy and through your time and expertise. A number of individuals and families here continue to demonstrate their commitment to the faculty and to the student experience, rewarding excellence and enabling opportunities through student awards. As a faculty, we are enriched by the diversity and strength of our community, and we're also pleased to have you all here with us tonight and to express our gratitude in person. For now, I'd like to introduce you to someone who was there from the very beginning, Associate Professor Andrew Hudson, who was Deputy Dean. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Julian, and welcome everyone. I wasn't Deputy Dean at the beginning. It feels like it, and for some sins that I must have undertaken in a past life, I was the user representative for the client, which means I had a great deal of fun. As we have known, the building is celebrating its 10th birthday. 10 years ago plus, the process of starting to find the appropriate designers and the design team for this particular building was undertaken through an international competition. And this is a two-stage competition of which expressions of interest were asked first, followed by a shortlist, which was then adjudicated by an esteemed international judging panel. From that, the offices of JWA, John Wardle Architects, and Office Star, which later became Nadar, joined together to form the architectural design team for this particular building. The Office of JWA and Office Star and Nadar must have searched the world to find two other architectural practices which had the same anally retentive attitude toward design and detail that they had. And I'm not sure they succeeded, but it was watching them work together was badly described by watching two astrophysicists trying to compete in Lego Masters. It was very intense, very intense. I was, as I mentioned, fortunate enough to see the efforts in the design and construction team through my role as a user representative. This meant that I had to get quite intimate in my involvement with the briefing, design and construction stages of the project. I knew I was getting a bit caught up in the minutiae of the project, or cult as I ended up calling it, too much when I found myself having to attend multiple meetings adjudicating on the waste bin size of the offices. At which point I think I'm too far into the weeds here, I need to move out and get a bigger picture about what's happening. Having architects and clients who were experts in the built environment made us the best and the worst clients for the design team. We were the best clients because we had expertise to enable us to understand the architectural explanations and the construction processes as they were put to us. We were the worst clients because we had the expertise to understand the architectural explanations and the design process as they were put to us. So on any given day, we were golden people when it came to clients, and we were not ungolden. What's another word for ungolden? Yes, I won't say what the other word was. The briefing processes and the designs, of which I was happy to be a party to as I pursued through the stages of the design, were extremely interesting because all the parties, including the construction crew and the builders themselves, were keen to see that the envelopes were pushed. There was a real desire by all the design and the construction team to actually undertake things which are innovative in the building. And as you have your opportunity for a tour of the building after this, you'll probably have pointed out to you many of the great innovations that are there, not just in terms of construction itself, but also in terms of the teaching processes that are enabled through this building. I wasn't sure if I was going to be talking before the video of the architects or after, but as I am before, I've just changed it slightly and said, as you will see, the building has been described as a pedagogical building by the designers, and they will explain why. I would agree with this to a large extent, but I will also say that the building is often described more like a body than a building as such. The skin on the outside that addresses the urban conditions that we find in the campus and the different climatic environments protect the organs that are inside. And the central atrium, the big space in the middle of the building, which acts as the heart of the building, drawing in the academic lifeblood. You'll see a bit of a pattern in this analogy coming through. The adjacent spaces, lungs, expand and contract to suit the seasonal faculty breathing patterns. Stretching further this visceral analogy, the circulation around the building enables casual academic collaboration through accidental bumpings into each other. This flow of people, blood, is intermingled and is a creative opportunity for the academic life of the building. I'll stop the analogy here before we get into who are the antibodies and who are the viruses, because, well, they know who they are anyway. So. Now, as you probably have discerned from looking around the building, it's in a very tight built environment on the university. And in this context, it makes the construction of it quite difficult because many construction sites require a fair bit of space. So much of the building was prefabricated off the site. And it is the stuff of myth making that the width of the atrium was determined by the longest prefabricated timber beams, single timber beams, that could be transported through the late night streets of Melbourne on the back of a truck. So one could argue that the building dimensions were set by the diameter of the Vic Roads roundabouts. Seriously. The suspended studios, as we'll see outside, and our tours, that you probably know them anyway, came about as an exploitation of the creative process. So the designers saw an opportunity to have something coming down from the ceiling and the roof of the atrium and extending down towards the ground. A bit like, as they will tell you, the upside down nature of the Southern Hemisphere. But we also saw the opportunity we can put some space in there. Stick some teaching space. We were stretching the budget. We wanted to get as much meterage as we could possibly get out of it all. The studios were fantastic, but we had an issue of what to call them. For a while, we called them hanging studios. Not a very fortunate connotation. My favourite, which didn't actually stick, was the Studios of Damocles, which never really took off. And I don't want to single out any particular donor of the building as such, but I do wish to thank Hanson and Youngkin for supplying donations to the building and being given the naming rights of these studios. So now the problem of what they are called has been resolved. Thank you. The architects will talk about the Joseph Reed facade on the western side of the building. It is worth noting it has been in its current location relocated from the original bank building in the CBD for longer than it was on the bank building. So as far as heritage goes, it is a real case to be made that its heritage importance is its current location, not the original location. The building we see around us was, as may have been noted, that was completed 6 months early and within budget. No mean feat, given the restraints of having to work with a client who are architects and builders, but also the restraints of having to work in a very tight environment. It has attracted media attention. It has won, as Julia's mentioned, many awards. And it has also been the location for an episode of Jack Irish. It was partly filmed here. I know this because I was told to get out of the way when I was trying to walk across the bridge. I was in one of their shots. And also, given the number of inquiries received, it could have been rented out many times for weddings. These requests are obviously turned down, but if the faculty is looking for another income stream, it may be worth reconsidering. I'm retired now, but I did work here for many years after its completion, and every time I approached and entered the building, I'd feel my spirits lift. Sounds corny, I know, but to walk in the doors into the atrium space and just feel everything just expand was a wonderful feeling. And this heightened spirit may not have lasted long. I was Deputy Dean at the time, therefore the workaday troubles sort of weighed me down again. But every day I would recharge by coming back into the building. And I know the building has this effect on students, academics, the wider university and the broader public. And for all that, it works as a beautiful and wonderful functioning academic machine. And it is this boost that it gives to our spirits that marks it as a rare but highly successful building. And what else could we have wished for? Happy birthday, MSD, and thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. As always, an extremely hard act to follow. I do want to share with you briefly a quote from the architects when the building was first completed. Understanding that the built environment is the product of history and the build-up of knowledge, we imagine the faculty's collection of architectural fragments of historic, cultural and curiosity value encompasses the embodied energy of the school to be knitted into the new fabric of the building. And this room itself is a great example of it. So it's with this perspective on honouring and taking forward our past that I want to acknowledge members of our community who are not able to join us today. Our international alumni community were absolutely critical in enabling us to proceed with this building, generous in their ambitions for the students following in their footsteps. With the tyranny of distance, many of them were unable to join us today, but we honour and thank them for their support. Many of our spaces are named in recognition of this support, as you will see when you have a chance to explore the building. And I always look forward to opportunities to connect with these alumni when my travel takes me to Singapore, Malaysia, or Hong Kong in particular. Sadly, we know that a number of people who were passionate and committed to this project are no longer with us to see its success 10 years on. Some are represented by loved ones tonight, and we thank you for being here and acknowledge their contribution with pride. And finally, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the leadership of Professor Tom Cavan, who, along with then Vice-Chancellor Glyn Davis, worked tirelessly to champion the building and deliver a remarkable legacy as Dean. Tom works in Shenzhen in China and has been unable to join us tonight. So back to the two architects in collaboration and their respective firms. It's now my pleasure to share with you a brief conversation with John Wardle and Nader Turani, who led the project that created this amazing building we stand in today. Both John and Nader were devastated to not be able to be here tonight. They would have moved heaven and earth if it had been possible. And John particularly spoke to me several times on the issue. But it was a great pleasure to be able to talk with them both last week, to record the video you will see. We have only got snippets of it. The conversation was long and inspiring, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing about the creative process that helped bring this building to life.
Well, first, what makes this building special is that it's the result of a very curious and unlikely partnership that all happened maybe a week before a deadline. And it produced a partnership that outlasted the building, taught me something about collaboration that I had never imagined.
It really is a building that's born out of conversation. Obviously, it started with us well ahead of engagement with the university and the vast stakeholder group with these two practices from other sides of the world that knew each other really through our work, but came together in a rapid-fire manner, developed a really harmonious, very intense working relationship that spanned the planet and certainly the two adjacent timeframes that really were sequentially almost perfect for us to share extended working days. We set in train a really powerful process that then carried right through the project.
There are many facets to the building. Though it is a square monolith, it's at the same time a piece of urbanism. Strangely, it is not that different than the original building, but it almost uses the original building with a corrective lens, urbanizing its four sides, that is, in relationship to its different facets, but also drawing the public in through the diagonal axis, using its base as a way of convening the entire community of the campus within the building. So for me, the confluence of urbanism and architecture is an important part of making the academic environment what it was.
I think the success of that was our research into the history of the campus and the predecessor that was there, and these fragments of knowledge, the knowledge that there was once a swamp where the concrete lawn was figuratively described as a lake, but from our knowledge it was much more a swamp, and imagining sort of topographical tributaries that would actually find their way to this lower watercourse. And some of these sort of fragments sort of then infused our discussion. So the frame of reference Nadir's discussing came out of both research and then these understanding of fragments of history of what these four sides, as has been described, four distinctly different relationships with 4 parts of the campus that sat around this island building were really acutely directed into an alignment with the way the facades operated, the way that actually programs were structured. It's a building that's very reflective of its set of circumstances within the campus. Well, it was drawn from a very clever and well-considered brief that was presented to us in the form of initially a competition brief that then became the basis of a very lengthy process of stakeholder engagement.
If I recall correctly, John, we had several discussions about built pedagogy, and one revolved the idea of a building that houses not only spaces of teaching, but moreover spaces of learning, and that gave way to a concept about the listed program, the classrooms, the seminar rooms, but also informal spaces where peer-to-peer instruction happened, and eventually the hot desk areas where the environment of students infused an interaction between different disciplines that would make for built pedagogy in one sense. The other one was altogether different. The other one suggested an idea about the building, drawing from its audience of well-educated faculty and students, reading the building such that the building invariably, for good or for bad, becomes a didactic instrument. And from that, one may learn about architecture in the curious ways that it might work, whether that is in its sustainable performance or in its more erratic moments, the suspended studio being, one of its more formidable moments. But everything about the building attempted in some way or another to illustrate architecture in an extreme environment of speculation.
And we imagine this as a process of learning very directly. It is an elemental building. You can look, as walking around the perimeter, at a facade that is absolutely responsive to its solar orientation and its circumstances. You can see each twist and turn in the outer screens that either draw light, provide a form of enclosure, or a reference to markers within the landscape. We come into that vast central hall, and you can understand the nature of a bending moment by seeing that wonderful sag through the ceiling that, under its own weight, then supports that suspended studio. The operability is something there. We understand that the dynamism of buildings, if they are responsive to program and rapid fire alteration. Those massive doors can spin open, and classes can become places of assembly and exhibition in a very immediate sense.
Maybe the best moment of the building was the way in which the whole suspended studio came about, and John's narrative that inspired it. Maybe, John, you want to explain the scene where that came about?
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful moment because it's literary, but at the same time it results in a very architectural moment.
So I talked about it. It's just again another wonderful fragment of history that D.H. Lawrence was travelling through Australia, I think in the 1930s, writing Kangaroo, one of his lesser novels, hating the place. Each of his letters home would write D.H. Lawrence upside down at the bottom of the world. And he meant it as a derogatory form, but we sort of feel here we are adhered by gravity to the underside of this vast sphere. So particularly two architects working across both hemispheres, it just seemed a really interesting story. And so out of that open discussion within the studio came the idea of actually suspending people in active pursuit of learning upside down at the bottom of this vast bending moment of a ceiling. There are so many parts to like the building. It's a very complex building. It's not a singular building. I love the way it sits into the campus. I feel very proud of the work that the two practices brought together so that that building as a massive central island structure sits so well into the campus. Not only the building, but the variance in the landscape that then is affected around the building, and then the way that is utilised as people pass through and inhabit the university. I do like the architecture of activity, and it's one of the things that I think we drew from out of the experience of NADA, is the inflections and movement of the various perching points, desks and tables that surround that vast atria pushes that fine wire framework into a sort of a veil, which in itself is a piece of architecture that does express the pushing and pulling of the capacity of the people that actually inhabit its edges. And that's, for us, a beautiful thing to see, as we more constantly come back through the building to see that evidence of so much human activity pushing against the edge, as the building allows it to do, of that vast shared open space.
Seemingly simple as a building type, it's essentially an atrium type. It has, various quirky moments that make its deformations and its transformations in relationship to context formidable. And the Joseph Reed facade was another one of those strange moments that I love, because effectively it repurposes that facade into a different guise altogether. I mean, we opened up the windows and activated the doors and brought the facade to life again, but we also gave it a robust structure on the inside that completely changes its relationship to one's expectations. So I rather enjoyed that episode as a design exercise also.
As the building is gracefully entering its early middle age, we talk about it in a different way. We more show photography and tell the stories of its use, and it's the serendipitous ones about there's so many medical students and law students and engineering students that pass through and inhabit the building, as well as the other things that we know about through the continued association we have with the faculty in the university.
I mean, we have benefited greatly from this building. It's an unfair question because in a strange way, we haven't built a fraction of what John and his practice have built, and yet it would be easy to call this the high point of our practice, but we certainly have benefited from it in a very particular way. As new institutions come to us and new individuals target us for future projects, they always cite this building as a civic building with a genuinely public interior, and that is invariably what they're looking for, an interior that is infused with a civic capacity. The thing you wish of any great building, if it's great, is that it is taken over by the students entirely to do with it what it was not intended to do. And that to me is the mark of a successful building, where they take the building hostage and make it do something completely unintended.
My wish is that the building continues to be responsive to an ever-changing sequence of events, and that it has the capacity to work in with things that are ever-changing, as the demands on it can be met by its flexibility, its robustness, and its sort of spirit, I think, to adjust and respond to the sorts of circumstances we probably could have never envisaged when we engaged with the designing of it. Something really special occurred here with these two practices getting together and providing so much for each other. It's for us, it is totally defining of the process of this building above any other. It is really the hallmark of the process of making that's so distinctive and evident in the building itself.
Part of the success of that building was in both the university and John's capacity to bring us there, the generosity of coffee and food, always in abundance and in high quality. The introduction to wine, what I didn't drink before that, all of that made for an environment of design that remains completely intact and etched in my memory. So I wish I could come back and celebrate it once again.
Yeah, it's deeply disappointing not to be able to be there. It's like a really wonderful party occurring and we're looking through a window. But I trust everybody's going to have a great time and see that this is still a very, very young building with lots of life ahead of it.
And you can see the affection they have for each other and the truly extraordinary experience it was to work together to produce this extraordinary building. And I must acknowledge that there are members of John Wardle's practice here tonight, and they also played an enormously important part. They haven't got to speak on screen in this video, but there is another video that will come that you can have a look at when you're circulating after the formal remarks, and you'll see some of them speaking there as well. So I'd now like to introduce Shreya Desai, who has just completed a Bachelor of Design like days ago and will graduate in days and has been offered a place in the Master of Architecture degree next year. Shreya has joined us tonight to share her perspective on the student experience of the building, having been an active member of the student community and a peer-assisted study session leader for a number of years. Shreya has also benefited from philanthropic support during the course of her studies, including receiving the Nell Norris Scholarship twice in that time in recognition of her academic excellence. Nell Norris was one of the earliest female architects in Melbourne and left a generous bequest to the university when she passed away in 1955. She made a provision in her will that funds were to go to a building for the then School of Architecture, should such a building be constructed within 5 years of her death. As many of you may be aware, the School of Architecture had no permanent location at the University of Melbourne until 1965, when this building's predecessor was completed on this site, designed in part by Brian Lewis. For this reason, the bequest instead fulfilled Nell's wishes in the form of alternative purpose and continues to support high-achieving students like Shreya each year, which is a tremendous and enduring legacy. Welcome, Shreya.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, dear sponsors, donors, staff members, guests, and fellow students. It is my honor to be speaking at such a special occasion, celebrating your support through these 10 years of our incredible design building. I'd like to begin my speech by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, where we practice, learn, and gather. I pay my respects to elders and knowledge holders of the past, present, and emerging. Having just completed my bachelor's degree, majoring in architecture, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to reflect on and express thanks for the experience I've had of studying and growing in this place over the past 3 years. Access and proximity to leading fabrication technologies in the makerspaces, a wealth of knowledge in our library, and the constant opportunity to listen and meet with experts in their field through guest lectures and evenings like this has allowed us to share ideas, build community, and ultimately enhance our university experience. I'm also always in awe of how this building comes to life every day and how it evolves over the semester to facilitate such a vast range of experiences for us as students. whether it is sitting in the atrium getting glimpses of other students working on incredible projects at different year levels, seeing friendly faces along the corridors during busy assignment periods, or the sharing of joy of seeing our peers' work on display as the building transforms into a gallery for end-of-semester crits and exhibitions. The physical environment is not just a backdrop to our education, it's an active participant in shaping how we learn and grow. Another big part of what has made this journey really special is the support of student awards and scholarships. Receiving the Nell Norris Scholarship has had a profound impact on my journey here, serving as a recognition of the importance of hard work and perseverance. It has and will continue to reinforce my drive along this pathway of continual growth and learning. Furthermore, for myself and many of my peers who have also benefited from the generosity of donors and sponsors, scholarships and awards have provided us with the resources to continue pursuing our passion for learning and access to further opportunities to make meaningful contributions to the academic community and beyond. And so, to all our guests this evening, on behalf of myself and all the students who benefit from your support, thank you so much for being here tonight. We are deeply grateful for your generosity, for your believing in our potential, and for making these experiences possible for us. And thank you to the faculty for inviting me to share my thoughts tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shreya. And thank you to all of you who have participated tonight and to join with us to celebrate this extraordinary milestone. We are now at the end of our formal proceedings, but the celebration doesn't end here. Tonight coincides with the vibrant MSDX summer exhibition, which brings the whole building to life with hundreds of pieces of student work. Celebrating the next generation of designers, the exhibition features installations, models, drawings and video works from the basement up here to the 4th floor. We have a number of staff and students here tonight who are leading guided tours of the building and the exhibition itself. So I do hope you will take the opportunity to explore by joining one of these tours before returning here for further refreshments until our conclusion at 7:30 tonight. My understanding is that the tour guides will be out in the corridor and that various people will suddenly appear and marshal you into groups, and it will all be seamlessly organised as though everybody knew what they were doing from the very beginning. For the remainder of the evening, this room will also host repeated screenings of a video compiled in celebration of the anniversary, featuring a number of you in the room, including me speaking rather too much, and I don't like looking at myself, so I might make myself scarce, but I hope you will enjoy it. For now, once again, I'm so grateful to have you as part of our community and that you could join us here for a very special celebration. On behalf of all our staff, students and the university community more broadly, thank you for your support and have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.